So the point being that back then, you didn't know what your defense was going to be back on June 10th of 2008 when you made that comment.
I don't really know what you mean by that.
Well, you didn't know it was going to be important back then in 2008, this issue involving the gun, and that's why when he asked you about it, you said no, he doesn't have any guns, because it wasn't important at that point because you couldn't foresee the future.
That's not why I said that.
Well, you said it though, right?
Yes, I did.
And there was no indication that, for example, that it was a lack of sophistication on your part in saying that.
It was a calculated statement.
It was a calculated statement, wasn't it?
Yes.
And it wasn't a situation where it was a technique by the police officer, was it?
Objection calls for speculation. She doesn't know.
Sustained.
Well, one of the things that were you here when Detective Flores testified?
Yes.
And the issue of techniques was discussed, correct?
Yes.
At that time, when you called him, you were the person that was actually, for lack of a better term, running the conversation.
I wouldn't.
Calls for speculation again regarding techniques.
I wouldn't say I was running the conversation.
You could have stopped that at any time, right?
Yes.
If we compare it to July 15th, on July 15th, you couldn't have walked out, right?
I could have stopped the conversation, but not walked out.
Right, you could have stopped it, but you could have, whereas in this case, not only could you have stopped the conversation, but you could have walked and done whatever it is that you wanted, right?
That day, yes.
Right, and that's the day that we're talking about, right?
Yes.
And if you would have wanted to ask him more questions, it's clear that he would have talked to you more, right?
Yes.
And on that date, on June 10th of 2008, if you would have wanted to tell him that you knew more about it, he would have listened to you, wouldn't he?
Yes.
Objection calls for speculation.
Sustained.
Do you think, ma'am, that if, in your opinion, that you, based on what you feel about the conversation, do you feel that if you were going to tell Officer Flores about what you knew had happened on June 4th, do you think that you would have been stopped from talking?
No, I don't think so.
Right, he would have listened to you, right?
Yes.
Yet you made that particular statement on that day, right?
Yes.
And it's because it is the truth, right?
No, it's not the truth.
You and Mr. Alexander never went shooting any guns, right?
No.
And you never saw Mr. Alexander with that gun in his hand, ever, did you? Any gun in his hand, right?
That's not true.
So you did see him with guns in his hand when you were with him.
At one time I did, yes.
And were the guns his?
It was not guns plural, it was one gun, and it was his.
So he had a gun back then?
Yes.
When was this?
I discovered it in the fall 2007.
No. I'm asking in terms of Mr. Alexander being the owner of a gun. When do you say that you knew he was the owner of a gun?
The fall 2007.
Is this the gun that we're talking about that you claim was used in the shooting?
It is the one.
That's what you claim, right?
Yes.
And with regard to that particular gun, you said that you supposedly found it somewhere. Where was the ammunition for it?
Inside the gun.
Inside where?
I guess it was inside the gun.
Do you even know if it was loaded?
He told me it was not loaded. But
So you don't even know if it was loaded, and you claim that he told you it wasn't loaded, right?
in the fall when I found it, he said it was not loaded.
Okay, so you believe it's not loaded, and you haven't received any statements to the contrary, right?
No, he took it one night when he was...
So you haven't received any statements to the contrary, right?
From him, I did receive statements to the contrary.
But knowing that then, according to you, now you say that he had a gun in 2007, you got on the phone and you said, no, Mr. Alexander didn't have any weapons, or no, any guns. You said that specifically, right?
Yes.
And now you come in and you tell us that, yes, he does have guns, or at least one gun, right?
At least one that yeah.
Right. Your grandfather also had guns, didn't he?
Yes, he had rifles and shotguns.
And he also had smaller guns too, didn't he?
I don't think so. Not plural.
Okay, he had a small gun then, right?
I don't know what it was.
Well, do you remember?
How small it was.
Pardon?
I don't know how small it was.
Well, was it one of those big long ones with the big long barrel?
Those are the only kinds I'd ever seen.
Right, so when you spoke to the detective about the gun that could have possibly been taken in the burglary, you indicated that it was a toy gun. Do you remember telling him that it looked like a toy gun?
No, I indicated that's what my grandfather said.
Right, and do you have any reason to doubt your grandfather's word?
No.
So, the gun that was taken, there was a burglary of the house you were staying at back on May 28th of 2008, wasn't there?
Yes.
And during that burglary, there were certain things that were taken from your room, right?
I think only, yeah, that's
What
right.
was taken from your room? What is it that you reported that was taken?
$10 and $20 bill.
So there was a total of $30 that were taken, right?
Yes. Yes.
There wasn't, your laptop wasn't taken, right?
No, my laptop was with me.
Well, I thought, do you remember that you actually told the police officers that you were pretty lucky because your laptop was in a hamper sort of thing and the clothes were covering it and it had not been stolen? Do you remember telling that to the officers?
No, I remember there was a discussion regarding the laptop, and I told him I was lucky that I had it with me because normally I keep it in this hamper.
You were here when the officer that went out there testified, right?
Yes.
And you looked at the photographs, right?
Yes.
And so you're saying that you actually had the laptop with you, right?
Yes.
And you were driving around with this laptop, according
Yes.
to you,
It
right?
goes everywhere with me, yes.
So you took it everywhere, you didn't leave it behind, right?
That's correct.
And nothing else was taken from your room, right?
That I noticed, yes.
Well, the officers gave you plenty of time to look around, right?
After they were done, like with their doing what they do, yeah, I looked around.
You're saying that they didn't give you an opportunity to go into your room to see what was missing in order to report it? Is that what you're saying?
That's not what I'm saying.
So they did allow you to go into the rooms then, into the room
Yes.
to look. And you were there until approximately 1 o'clock in the afternoon, right?
No.
So you were there later?
What do you mean by that?
I mean, were you there later than 1 o'clock?
No.
So you were there at 1 o'clock then, right?
I was there at 1 o'clock, but I wasn't there like all day the way you asked.
Right. You were there approximately at 1 o'clock, right?
Yes, my sister and I.
And before but when the detective or the officer testified, was there ever a mention of your sister while you were here?
I don't remember if he asked me or not. If he,
No. When the officer from Wairika testified, was there ever a mention of your sister?
when he testified, no, I don't think so.
Not at all, right?
No.
In fact, what happened was that you were out of the house and you were called to respond there, right?
I think I was. There was a voicemail left. Yes.
But you were called in any event, right?
Yes.
And you indicated to the police that you had been there, the last one to be there, at 1 o'clock, right?
Yes.
And you actually came back sometime after 3 o'clock, right?
I don't remember what time I came back. I just came back as soon as my sister checked her voicemail.
And I know that, so if he said 3 o'clock, then you would have no quibble with it, right?
Sure. No quibble.
Right? And you heard what items were taken, including a .25 caliber handgun. You heard that, right?
Yes, I heard that.
And you also indicated to the detective that the .25 caliber handgun that your grandfather had, according to him, was like a toy gun, right?
Yes.
And at that time, you had a purse, right?
Yes, I did.
And in fact, this is what you carried your items in, right?
Yes.
And this purse, this toy gun purse, could have fit in your purse, right?
I don't know. I've never seen it.
So, how about the gun that you used to kill Mr. Alexander? How big was that gun?
It wasn't very big.
Looked like a toy gun, right?
It looked like a real gun to me.
Well, and it could fit in your purse, couldn't it?
If I removed some other items, it would fit.
So the answer is yes, it could fit in your purse, right?
Yes.
So this occurred on May 28th of 2008, shortly before you left on your trip, right?
The burglary, yes.
And this is during the time, 10 days after you've had this telephone conversation with Mr. Alexander, right?
10 days after what conversation?
The sex conversation that you had on the telephone, which was on the
It would have been
18 days, I'm sorry.
Yes.
So it's 18 days later, right?
Yes.
And so you are still having conversations with Mr. Alexander, correct?
Yes.
And you indicate that, well, I really wasn't going to go visit him, right?
That was not the plan when I hit the road.
Right, that's what you said. That was not the plan to go down there. Yet, when you get to Southern California, you're now at the Starbucks, right?
Yes.
And you're at the Starbucks, and you are sitting around drinking your strawberry frappuccino, right?
No, I just went in and then came out.
Okay? And in the time that it took for you to go in and come out, something happened to your car, according to you, right?
Yes.
There was another series of coincidences here,
Well, I
right?
think it was that time that that happened.
Well, no, that's what you sort of indicated on direct examination, that that's when you think it happened, right?
Yes.
How long were you inside of Starbucks?
I'd say 5 to 10 minutes. I used the restroom. There was a long line, and then after I got my drink, I waited for it to be made, and then I went back out to my car
Right.
to get on the road.
And according to you, then you came out to your car, right?
Yes.
And when you came out to your car, you indicated that there were some skaters there, right?
Yes.
And about what time of the day was that?
It was at night.
So what time at night?
I don't know. It
Was
was,
this-
I don't know, sometime between 9 and 10. I don't know. It wasn't too late, but it was at night.
And while you're there, when you come out, you see that there are these skaters laughing near your car, correct?
Not like laughing loud, just kind of snickering
So they were snickering near your car, right?
as they were skating away from my car.
Right. And there were other cars in the parking lot, right?
Yes.
And it was a pavement kind of parking lot, right?
Yes.
It wasn't dirt or anything like that. And one of the things that you notice when you get into your car is that you see something in front of you, right?
Yes.
And you decide to investigate, right?
Yes.
And were you pulled in, ma'am?
Yes. I was pulled in forward.
You were pulled in forward and there was a sidewalk in front of you?
The sidewalk wasn't directly in front of me, but there was a curb.
So there was a curb and your bumper's right next or in front of that, right?
That's right.
And you're coming out from the Starbucks, which is presumably on the sidewalk, which is what you're calling the curb, right?
No, but the Starbucks would have been behind and to the right of the vehicle.
Okay? So there was this curb there, and you see these individuals. How many were they?
I think there were 3.
And you then, is it well lit? This area, is it well lit?
There are lights in the parking lot.
And you go and you get in your car and you turn the car on and you're getting ready to leave, right?
That's right.
And as you get ready to leave, you turn your lights on, right?
Yes.
And as you turn your lights on, something catches your eye, right?
Not till I began to back out.
Okay, so you begin to back out and something catches your eye, right?
Yes.
Why do you care that something's out in front of you if you don't know anything about your license plate? Why would you even care?
Because it was a reflector. It was reflective, and I just kind of put the two together, like, maybe I should check what that is real quick before I hit the road.
And when you're saying it's a reflector, are you talking about the registration tags that they put on the back of, or on the license plates?
No.
What kind of reflector are you talking about then?
It was kind of like it just lit up more, like it reflected a lot more than anything else around it. The pavement was dull. It was lit, but like by my headlights, but not like this thing that was bright.
And it was flat though, right?
It was just a flash, so
No. The object was flat, correct?
I didn't see until I got out that it was a flat license plate.
So when you're in a car, you don't even know it's a license plate, right?
No, not till I get out to investigate.
So that means that as you're backing up, you see this something that catches your eye, right?
Yes.
And it's about 9 or 10 o'clock at night, right?
Yes.
And you decide to go look at it, right?
Yes.
And so you look at it and you decide it's a license plate, right?
Yes.
Well, ma'am, why take it?
Because I looked right at, well, I pulled back in, turned my car off, and then I looked at my license plate. It had bugs all over the front, minus where the license plate was, and I had just driven some 500-600 miles from Wairika, or
Right.
Redding, and then the license plate that I was holding had a
Right.
ton of bugs of the same kind of like
Sure.
amount. So
Right.
I just kind of threw it in my car and left.
Right. But you never thought to compare it to the one in the back, did you?
No,
In other words, you're taking a license plate that you have no idea whether or not it belongs to you, right?
no, I have an idea.
Well, wait a minute. You didn't check it with the one in the back?
No,
And license plates have numbers and letters on them, right?
yes,
This one had numbers and letters on it, right?
yes,
It could be that it belonged to somebody else, right?
that's possible.
Sure it was, because you didn't take the time, according to you, to go to the back to see whether or not it matched, right?
No,
And so what you do is, potentially, without knowing what it's about, you grab it, right?
I had an idea of what it's about, so I can't say that I didn't know.
Well, you grab it, right?
Yes,
You take it without checking.
yes,
And then you put it in the car, right?
yes.
You put it in the back seat of the car, right?
No, I think it was in the front floorboard.
So you put it in the front seat of the car, right?
The floorboard.
The floorboard.
Yes.
This dirty license plate that has all these bugs on it, right?
Yes,
You decide to go ahead and take it anyway, right?
yes.
And did it ever occur to you to investigate the license plate in the back to see whether or not it matched?
Not right then. I was more concerned about getting in my car and locking the doors.
Pardon?
I was more concerned about getting in my car and locking the doors.
Because you were concerned for your safety, right?
Somewhat, yes.
Well, if you're concerned for your safety, why are you getting out to go check on something that is just shining there?
Well, because I didn't know, I wasn't concerned until I realized that that had happened, so.
Well, no, but if you're concerned for your safety, why are you getting out and exposing yourself?
I didn't get out after the concern arose.
Overruled. Objection, stop speaking until the court rules.
Okay.
You may continue.
I didn't
If
get
you
out
were-
until the concern
Let me
arose.
ask it again. If you are afraid for, you told us that you were afraid.
Can you answer the question before he interjects?
Restate your question.
You indicated that you were afraid for your safety. That's why you didn't check the front license plate, the license plate that you found with the one in the back, right?
No, I indicated that getting in the car and locking the doors was what was on my mind. Checking it with the back didn't occur to me.
But I asked you about it, and just now you said, well, I got in the car, I locked the doors, and I was sort of in a hurry to do that because you were worried about your safety. You said that, right?
It was a concern. I wasn't
Right.
like scared or anything, but it was a concern.
Right. It was such a concern that you did it quickly, right?
I locked the doors quickly, yes.
Yeah, and you turned the car on quickly. That's what you just told us, right?
Yes.
But you were not so concerned about your safety that when you saw something that you didn't even know what it was, you got out to investigate, right?
Not initially, that's correct.
Well, you didn't know what it was initially, right?
I didn't know it was a license plate, so no.
Right. You just said that you thought it was something shiny, right?
Yeah, reflective.
You see something shiny, you're concerned for your safety, and you're backing out, and you're in a place of safety already, aren't you?
You said I'm concerned for my safety, but as I was doing that, I wasn't concerned for my safety.
Man, when you're in the car and you're backing out, and you see this reflective thing, or thing that's reflecting, you are in a place of safety at that point, aren't you?
Parking lot at night, public place, it's pretty safe, I guess.
No, I'm talking inside of the car with the doors locked. You're in a place of safety then, right?
Yes.
So that if anybody's coming at you, if you're concerned, you could just gun it and drive away, right?
I'd have to keep backing out, but yes, I could drive away.
Sure, you're in a position of, if you will, of power at that point because you can back up, right?
Yes.
And you can move forward, correct?
No, I couldn't move forward, but
Af-
after backing up,
Yeah,
yes.
sure. And you could leave if you wanted to, right?
Yes.
But instead of doing that, even though you're concerned for your safety, you see something that you can't identify,
I
right?
was not concerned for my safety at that point. That's the distinction.
Well, you still see something that's really just something that reflects, correct?
That's correct.
And you said that it was flat, right?
I just saw a bright flash when my headlights hit it.
Gone over this 3 or 4 times.
Sustained.
How can you tell us that you saw anything reflective, ma'am, if the reflective materials on a license plate are on the top of it, and you said it was flat? How could you have seen it?
Because it was angled on the curb. It's still flat, but it's still reflected on the lights.
Didn't you tell us when we started this talk that it was flat? Didn't you just tell us that a little bit earlier?
Yes, it's still
And so
flat.
if it's flat, The reflective material on a license plate, would you agree, is on the top?
Only-
Asking for the end argumentative.
Overruled.
Only if it would have been laying flat, but that wasn't the case.
But isn't that what you told us to start with?
No.
You told us something, according to you, you told us something else.
I didn't tell you that.
Well, let me do this. The front of the car where you looked to see where your license plate was,
Yes.
you saw that, right?
Yes.
It was flat, wasn't it?
On the front of my car?
Yes.
Yes, it was.
Where it would go. So that if there was a license plate that was there, it would also be flat, correct?
Yes, the license plate was flat.
Right. And if a license plate is taken off and thrown or done something to, if that license plate is put on the ground, it would either, if it's flat, would either lay face down, flat, or face up, flat, correct?
If it was in that position, that is correct.
You're saying that, you told me previously that you saw it laying down on the sidewalk. Do you remember that?
No, I remember saying there was no sidewalk there, just a curb.
Okay, that it was laying on the curb, right?
It was leaning on the curb.
So it was leaning on the curb. You're saying now that the reflective part was leaning on the curb?
Yes. Well, there's a curb, but there's a little bumper, so your car doesn't drive forward. It was on that, against that bumper thing.
So it's like the cinder block, is that what you're saying?
I think that's what it would be called.
And this is the cinder block that you told us that you parked the wheels of your car up against, right?
I don't know that I touched the cinder block with the wheels, but I pulled into that space.
Well, yeah, you told us that the front of the car came up to the sidewalk area. Do you remember just telling us that?
There is no sidewalk there.
Or it came up to the area where the cinder block was. Do you remember telling us that?
Yes.
Objection, relevance,
Overruled.
So if you came up to the cinder block with the front of your car, which is what you told us, right?
Yes.
And this is the cinder block right here, and this is your car. What you are now telling us is that that license plate, as you backed up, is now leaning, standing up on the inside portion of the cinder block so that when you back away, it flashes, right?
That's where it was.
So what you're telling us is that whoever did this took the time to not only take the license plate off, but also took the time to crawl underneath the car, because you now have the bumper there, and put it down inside the cinder block.
Objection calls for speculation as to what somebody did when they removed her license plate.
Rephrase. Sustained.
The car, you told us, was pulled up against the cinder block. Do you remember when we talked, when we started this, that's what you told me?
I said it was pulled into that space.
No, you told us that it was up against the cinder block. Do you remember telling us that?
I remember.
Objection mischaracterizes her testimony, Your Honor.
Sustained. Rephrase.
And when you were pulled in, right?
Yes.
And then you said that you went into this Starbucks, right?
Yes.
And the car, as we're talking about it, there were some people around it when you came out, right?
When I came out, there were some kids, yes.
They were not near the front of your car, right?
I don't know. I didn't see them like in the front crouched down or anything
Right.
like that.
You said they were already kind of gone, right?
They were snickering and starting to skate away from my car.
And you didn't think anything of it, right?
I didn't give it any deep thought.
And the front of the car was next to the cinder block, right?
Well, yeah, next to would be accurate.
Right. And the license plate, as you describe it, was standing towards the driver of the cinder block, right?
It was leaning, so yes. That would
So
be
it was
right.
leaning,
On the
right?
yeah, on my side.
And so as you're backing up, right?
Yes.
It flashes, right?
That's correct.
And you said, oh, you just told us. I didn't know what it was. You remember telling us that?
Yes.
How can you tell us that you didn't know what it was if it's standing up, leaning, and it's got numbers and it's reflective? How can you tell us you don't know what it is?
I'm nearsighted and I didn't get glasses until 2010.
So now you're saying that you're driving and your perception is so bad that you can't see that it's a license plate?
I didn't really see what it was. That's why I got out to investigate.
It was square. Couldn't you see that?
It was rectangular.
Okay, it was rectangular. And it was flashing. Couldn't you see that?
Yeah, it made a reflection.
So that's how you know that it was, that's what caught your attention, right?
The bright flash caught my attention.
Right. And so as you're backing out, we know, or you've driven in California before, right?
Yes.
You know
primarily.
that license plates are reflective, right?
Yes, I do.
And in fact, on one side they have numbers and letters, right?
Yes.
And the numbers are different colors than the background, right? Or the numbers and letters are different color than the background, right?
Yes, the back is technically white, usually.
Right, exactly. And so you're familiar with that, and you're saying that as you're backing up, the lights are on this rectangular object that's got numbers or letters, whatever they are, and it's got bugs on it, and you're backing up, and your headlights are on it, and you say you don't know what it is?
Objection, ask an answer. She said she got out to investigate. She did 3 times now.
Sustained. We are going to take the afternoon recess. Ladies and gentlemen, please be back in the jury room at 3:25, and we will start promptly at that time. Please remember the admonition. You are excused.
Please stand for the jury.
The record will show the jury is out of the courtroom. Ms. Arias, you may step down. We are at recess.